our next plan. We're going to blow up the city!
For a long moment, Linnet just stared at her, trying to discern some hint of humor or playfulness. However, the only emotion that dominated Marika's face was that of earnest, unbroken honesty. Cold dread creaked and groaned inside Linnet, and she was surprised that it had not made a disturbance during the meeting. Slowly, Linnet turned her attention to face the others, as there were a bunch of people in the staff meeting today. In addition to Alfreda, Nixie, and herself, Elvinia and the entire R&D Arcanist staff were present as well. Nixie's eyes were opened wide, and her mouth hung ajar. Alfreda's lips formed a small pout underneath her nose, and she sort of glared at Marika. What was most unsettling was that Elvinia and the other Arcanists averted their eyes from the commander. Guilt stained their faces, and the air around them was quite bitter.
Well, I'll be honest. I had hoped for a better reception to my brilliant plan.
Ma'am, when you say blow up, do you mean make something explode and kill large percentages of the population?
Yes, I would say this plan will kill a majority of the population.
Alfreda stood up and crossed her arms over her chest.
Killing so many humans is an ethics policy violation. It's against company standards.
Yeah, about that. Those ethics policies are so antiquated, and to be honest, they're stupid. We are in the business of harvesting soul energy from living beings. What we do is a giant ethics violation. I'm sure if we consulted with the humans, they would see it as a tremendous ethics complication. Hell, they'd probably see it as an act of war.
Be that as it may, the Operon Corporation had set in its updated bylaws that we're not supposed to perform open genocide, which is what you're proposing now. What you're planning is wrong.
A long and prickly silence flickered in the air above their heads, and everyone kept turning their eyes from Alfreda to Marika, and then back again. Marika's smile fell away, and she openly glared back at Alfreda with a kind of foreboding and doom-filled stare that forced Alfreda to turn her attention away for only a second.
I wanted to like you. I really did, Alfreda. But I will not tolerate divisiveness. Firstly, I don't give a rat's ass about those ethics policies. And neither does the current board of directors.
Marika pulled open one of her drawers and then stood up. In her hands, she held a rolled-up scroll.
I have in my hands a writ of permission to conduct the next mission as I see fit. You see, everyone, ever since I first arrived, I have been reviewing all your reports, and also collecting my own data. Based on my data, both from this current assignment and from my previous posts in the past, I found an interesting discovery.
Marika glared harder at Alfreda, and slowly, Alfreda sat back down. As soon as she was back where she was supposed to be, Marika smiled again. However, this time, it wasn't the same warmth she had before. No, this perhaps was the real Marika. The one that Latifah had warned her about. Or at least, this was a hint of who the real Marika was.
Would you all like to know what my discovery was? How funny. But in all the years that Nymphians have been harvesting Anam energy, we never recorded and studied how much Anam energy is produced when the soul leaves the body. In the past, when large amounts of death occurred, I was surprised to see an abundance of Anam energy for the taking. So, I submitted a proposal to the board of directors.
She moved from around the desk and started weaving through the various seated individuals. She didn't menacingly approach Alfreda, but merely waltzed around her without so much of a glance.
My plan is simple. We're going to enact several catastrophic explosions within the city, killing thousands of people. While this happens, we're going to measure the Anam energy output, the Anam energy potency, and how much raw reserve we can collect from such a small community. If my hypotheses are correct, and we are able to harvest vast more sums of Anam energy compared to the regular procedure, then those silly ethics policies will be abandoned for a fierce new business model.
Linnet averted her eyes as the swirling bitterness nearly overtook her. This was too much. She couldn't do this. She didn't want to be a killer. She didn't want to cause the deaths of innocents. Linnet glanced back to check where the commander was. Her heart stopped in her chest. Marika's eyes were level with her own. The commander had bent over, and she watched Linnet as a starving predator might observe a weak prey. No one said anything.
If any of you do not want to do this, you are welcome to quit right now. However, if any of you do quit on me, I promise you, I will make it so you will never be hired anywhere, ever.
Without breaking eye contact, Marika slowly rose back to her full height. She gave Linnet a wide grin and then started walking again.
Believe me, ladies, I can make it happen. You all signed up to be in the Anam energy operations industry, and this is what it looks like. It can get gritty, dark, and dangerous. Strap in.
Marika peered over her shoulder.
Or ruin the rest of your lives. So, without further ado, I'd like to go over the plan. Does anyone have any objections?
No one did, not even Alfreda. Even though Linnet was the one who was the target of the commander's ire, it was clear from Alfreda's expression. Her shoulders were slumped. She frowned, and her eyes shimmered with some light wetness.
I've been having the head of R&D work on some delightful artifacts that will make fantastically devastating explosions when placed in the right environments. The right environments will be the city's energy plants. The artifacts will collect latent magic from their power grids, and then cause each of the 3 power grids to explode. The resulting blast should kill about 83% of the population. The best part, it will look like freak accidents, or perhaps terrorist attacks from human terrorists. If we're lucky, the Sparkle Guardians will be caught in the blasts as well.
Marika pointed right at Linnet.
You and Elvinia will form Team 1 and place your artifact in the smallest of the energy plants. You two seem to work together. Why break up a good thing? Team 2 will be comprised of Nixie and Alfreda. Your energy plant is twice the size of the first one, but with Alfreda's army, you shouldn't have any trouble.
Marika sat upon the front of her desk, and she started to lightly swing her legs back and forth, as if it were a playground.
The last team will consist of me and the rest of R&D. We are taking on the biggest reactor, and statistically, it should be the one that should attract the Sparkle Guardians. However, if they come to one of the first 2 plants instead, hold them off until I get there. The Sparkle Guardians will die during this mission, one way or another. Any questions?
Ma'am, are we going to have to activate a timer on the artifacts, or is there going to be some kind of trigger?
Oh, I'll be the one to activate the trigger. I'll only do that once we're safe back in the Citadel. Don't worry. I won't sacrifice any of you. Any other questions?
No one had another, and so Marika swung her legs back over her desk and slid into her seat.
R&D is putting the final touches on the bombs. We're going to start this plan in 5 days. You all are free to do whatever you want until then. You can even go to the city and have your last hurrahs at your favorite little spots. After we're finished with this city, they won't be there anymore. Dismissed.
R&D was the first to get up and leave, although Linnet didn't rise up until Elvinia was beside her. It was silent as everyone shuffled out. Linnet gave one look over her shoulder to Marika. Rather than smile, the Citadel commander glared at Linnet. How funny. The day was so gorgeous today. The sun dominated the sky without any clouds to hinder its brilliance. It was warm, but not overly so, and a soothing breeze tickled Linnet's cheek. As wonderful as it was, it did little to lift her spirits. Elvinia walked beside her, and yet she was also enveloped in a melancholy shell. Alfreda and Nixie had elected to not join them on this outing, as they had their own special spots to visit before the mission. Many humans were on the sidewalks today, as it was the weekend. People were smiling, conversing with one another, and they moved past Elvinia and Linnet. The two of them were the harbingers of death, reluctantly so. Rather than go to Anthony's, Elvinia and Linnet had decided to just walk around the city. It was unfortunate that they did not do this before, just exploring all of the small and large aspects of life and culture. Every once in a while, one of them would point towards something interesting, and they traded brief conversations about whatever it was. They eventually found their way into a large park with trails, benches, and playground equipment. There was also a ton of trees in the park, which reminded Linnet of sweet Nymphia. Linnet sat down on one of the benches, and Elvinia plopped down beside her. A group of young moms strolled past them, pushing strollers, and talking about the state of the economy and how it affected their Roth IRAs. The babies cooed loudly, and it was not all that unpleasant to hear. In the distance, children swung on the swings, climbed on the octagon-shaped jungle gym, and laughed. It was kind of infectious, and Linnet smiled ever so slightly. However, tears welled in her eyes. Elvinia placed a hand on her hand, and she gave a slight reassuring squeeze.
I know. This really sucks.
These people are good people. Innocent. Yes, we harvested Anam energy from them before, but what Marika is planning, it's horrid.
Yeah, I only found out about the plans yesterday morning. I wanted to tell you, but I was directly told not to. Thank the goddess that I wasn't a part of the development of the exploding artifacts, scanners, or anything. Still, that doesn't make this any easier.
This is not what I signed up for. I never wanted a life where I killed other people.
What were you expecting? I know they covered combat and such in college. I didn't go through the curriculum, but I had other friends who did.
Why do you think I honed my song magic the way I did? I'm a support-type operative, not a combat type. I never wanted to follow in my family's direct footsteps. They told me I had a legacy to follow, and I came from a long line of songstress Anam Energy collectors. I figured if I healed and buffed my allies, it would be something I could get used to.
Something you could get used to? Life is way too short to settle for a life you get used to. One thing is for sure, after this mission, you need to find a new career.
I should have quit before. If I try and leave now, Marika will ruin any chance to start over anywhere.
Yeah, I believe she can make it hard, but I don't think she can ruin your chances. You should quit now. Just go. It'll be okay.
Slowly, Linnet turned her attention squarely on her friend. Elvinia's eyes were cast in narrow, anguish-filled slits, and her mouth had formed a crooked frown.
No. I can't leave you to face this alone. Me, you, Alfreda, and Nixie came on this journey together. And I'm not going to be selfish and run away. I just hate this.
Elvinia grinned, but only for a second. Her eyes became wetter, and then she turned her attention toward the children again.
I wish we could warn them, you know? But doing that will have the same sort of effect as quitting. Hell, it would be even worse for us.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm going to quit after this mission. I'll accept the sins of what's going to happen, but I couldn't make a career of it.
You know what? I will too. I love the opportunity to build magical technology, but I can do that anywhere.
You're going to quit too?
Elvinia simply nodded, and then let out a heavy sigh. A couple of young men ran past them, and they were dressed in bright yellow, teeny shorts, and were shirtless. Within 30 seconds, 10 more young men ran past, followed by a group of 30 more 20 seconds after that.
Humans are so weird. Can you imagine willingly running? No, thank you.
Yeah, it's not something I'm into either. But human bodies are different than ours. Some humans even run for fun. Like, not as part of a team, but just to do it.
Well, you know, once we quit, you'll have plenty of time to work on your fan fiction.
Yeah, well, I'll have to choose new characters to write about.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
Don't be. All great things must end at some point. Besides, I've written so many naughty stories about Poseidon and Hades. It's getting kinda stale. I'll always treasure what I had written. But now, I need new material. And new muses.
So, what are you going to do?
I don't even know. I never really thought about it. I just figured I would spend about 200 years in R&D and maybe work my way up to being an R&D director. I always wanted to develop new technology to better harvest Anam energy safer, without killing anyone. Some of the projects here gave me a lot of things to think about and data to play with.
Well, maybe you can do that.
Maybe. Well, what about you? What are you going to do?
That's the same question I've been muddling over since I graduated. I have no idea what I want to do or how to figure out what I want to do. I just know Anam Energy Collection isn't it.
Ooh, have you ever tried being a singer/performer?
Nope. Singing is okay and it's in my blood, but I wouldn't want to do it for a career. Like I said, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. I don't even know what my purpose is.
Well, maybe a career isn't supposed to be the thing that defines your purpose. Maybe it's a hobby.
A hobby? But I can't pay rent or eat food with hobbies.
Well, no, most of the time you can't. But that's why you can find an okay job that allows you the financial freedom to do whatever it is you want to do. You're funding your purpose, and that's okay too.
For a long time, Linnet sat there and stared at the sidewalk while Elvinia watched the people go by. She didn't stare at Linnet, place any expectation for her to respond, or anything. A small, barely noticeable bead of warmth began resonating inside her. It didn't grow, but it was there.
Maybe you're right. I was so overwhelmed thinking that I was supposed to find the perfect career as soon as possible, or I was going to be a failure. It has been so stressful.
I know it has, and I want you to realize it doesn't have to be. It's okay if you get it wrong at first. Hell, it's all right if you mess up over and over. I have an aunt who started over 4 times, trying out different careers until she stumbled upon what she wanted to do, by accident. Had she not gone on a couple of detours, she would have never discovered her greatest passion.
What does she do?
She's a producer of her own little startup production company. The point I'm trying to make is that it's okay if you haven't got it figured out, or if you go forward without really knowing where you're headed. The important thing is that you keep on moving.
Huh. You're so smart. I'm glad I have a friend like you. Now I just need to find an okay job to fund my self-exploration.
I actually have an idea about that. How about you stick with me?
What do you mean?
I know wherever I go, I'm going to be making stuff. Well, I need an assistant. Do you want to be my assistant?
Do you mean it?
Sure. We'll apply together, and if a company wants me, then they have to pay you as my assistant Arcanist researcher. You probably won't be paid near what I get paid, but I'll fight for a good salary. And when you find what you want to do, we can figure out the next step. Does that sound like a plan?
Linnet practically leapt on Elvinia and embraced her in a slight hug.
Yes! That sounds like it would be fun, and I promise I'll help you with whatever I can.
Don't get too excited yet. You and I still have to get through this next mission, alive and sane. But we will get through it. Let's just focus on that for now. And then, once we do,
we'll leave this crap situation and find a better place. Yes, we will get through this. We just have to.
Linnet and Elvinia stayed on the bench until sunset, and brilliant oranges blanketed across the city. As soon as no humans were in sight, they took out their teleportation crystals, and then became bathed in alabaster light.